What's up, everybody? Marvel the Cross 316 back with another comic book flashback. Today, we are looking at Ultimate Spider-Man issue number 17, and we look on the cover today, and we have Spider-Man, and it looks like he's being held and positioned on a wall here by Dr. Octopus here. So, are we finally going to see Spider-Man fight Dr. Octopus? Well, we'll have to find out as we dive on into today's issue. We also have to worry about the threat that we found out from last issue from Kraven the Hunter here. We learned from last issue that Kraven the Hunter is from Australia. He's part of this big TV show, and he's basically threatened the life of Spider-Man, saying that he's going to kill Spider-Man with his bare hands. So Peter Parker is watching this from his TV set in the living room. Aunt May gets on to Peter Parker for eating in a living room. He's not supposed to do that, by the way. And he's like, Aunt May, have you seen this right on TV? The guy was going to, and she's like, you going to the Bugle after school? And he says, yeah, yeah. And she says, you have money for dinner? And Peter's like, yeah. Aunt May says, no more of those sweet pretzels. They upset your tummy. I'll see you tonight, sweetie. So Aunt May leaves the house. We see that Peter Parker then collects his thoughts by saying, Guy says he's going to kill you on a morning talk show. What a completely crappy way to start the day. And so we come across this poster here, shows Kraven the Hunter with a spear going right after Spider-Man. And we see that this is one of Kraven the Hunter's agents here. Basically, this guy comes up with all the teaser graphics and comes up with what's going to come on the show and everything. He's in charge of the entire development process of the show. And Kraven's like, where'd you get the picture? And we see here that this guy says, we dressed up Eddie the Grip, did the rest in Photoshop. Kraven's like, I'm still not 100% into this. So Kraven's kind of not into it, but he's definitely wanting to reach stardom and basically get a lot of fans from doing this. And the guy here, his producer, is basically promising Kraven that if they can pump out 100 episodes, then they will definitely receive a lot of money for what they're doing. We see that there's another woman here that's helping along with the process, and her name is Wankindi, and she's from Africa. And I guess somehow or another, Kraven and her met a few years ago. It's been 2 years ago by that fact, so maybe they've been in a relationship. And so she's supposed to be like the sexy side kick to Kraven the Hunter, but we didn't hear much from her except for the fact that her and Kraven are not really getting along at this point. So the producer of the show is basically saying, Kraven, baby, for the next 6 months, you're going to be sex and violence personified. Ratings go up. We hit our mark. After that, you can look in the camera and read The Great Gatsby for all I care. And so we see here that Kraven the Hunter has his eyes set on killing Spider-Man, so we have to worry about that. So 1 week later, Peter Parker is in the class. We see that this is the same woman. We learn that she's not the math teacher, actually. She is the social studies teacher, and she's talking about the first debate between John F. Kennedy and Richard Nixon, and how that was the first televised presidential debate on TV here. And so they're talking about all this. All of a sudden, the principal comes in the classroom with Gwen Stacy, and he tells the class that Police Captain Stacy has guaranteed there will be no more incidents like the one last week where Gwen Stacy pulled out a knife, put it right up against Kong's throat. So we see here that the teacher is going to allow Gwen to come back into the class. We see that Gwen then apologizes to the class saying, I know you don't know me or anything, and I just came to this school, but I'm not like crazy girl looking to terrorize the school or anything. And she basically says, I got bummed out when I saw all the bullying going on. I don't like bullies, but I know that's no excuse, so she basically apologizes in front of the class. See, Mary Jane gives a look to Peter Parker here. See, Gwen then takes her seat, and the teacher continues to go on with her lesson. She says there's only a few more minutes. They're going to have this assembly coming up shortly. when all of a sudden Gwen raises her hand and she says, I think we need some more apologizing. And the teacher says, I'm sorry. And she's like, no, not from you, from him. She points to Kong and she's like, from this chubby load. I think that this guy needs to apologize to this guy for starting this all in the first place. And she points to Peter and she's like, did you ever apologize for kicking him? Kong says, no. So the teacher has to break up the argument here and she says, Gwen, do you want to be expelled again? And so we see here that Gwen and Kong definitely do not like each other. So we see the teacher ask the class, so what do you have any questions about the assignment that I gave you about dressing up as a mutant or a superhero? We see Liz Allen raises her hand and she says, I don't think it's a good idea that we're doing this assignment. You know, there's all this big commotion going on in the news right now with the mutants outbreak. There's a lot of people reporting that mutants are going to be taking over New York City and all this. And we just can't do this. And my mom is going to lead this PTA meeting and stuff. And so we don't like this. So the teacher asked the rest of the class, do you share with Miss Allen's views? See, Gwen Stacy begins to smile and the teacher turns her back. Gwen was going to then raise her hand, basically in agreement with Liz Allen. Mary Jane writes a note to Peter Parker saying, wow, just wow. Peter Parker smiles. We soon are going to find that there's going to be a limousine in the next scene here, and I didn't tell you who this guy is because I didn't really know who this guy was, but this guy's basically his name is Justin Hammer. And what we've learned from Justin Hammer is we found a lot of information within this one issue, a lot of very interesting information, I have to say. So we see that Justin Hammer is talking to this Dr. John Skirdick here from Hammer Industries. Hammer Industries is actually a research facility that's a rival industry to Osborne Industries. What we learned is that Justin Hammer has been funding money to basically train and develop these people with superpowers. And one of the people that we're going to find out that he's been experimenting on is none other than Sandman. As we see right here, this guy's named Flint Marko. As we see right here, they've been experimenting on Flint Marko to give him this sand powers. As we know, he's the Sandman in the regular universe. Then we see Justin is like, what have you done? And I said, well, we're trying to work out all the different side effects with Flint Marko, but we'll soon get him to capacity here. We also learned that basically Justin Hammer was also responsible for giving Electro his power. So what we did find out from this issue basically is that Electro basically gained his powers because of this man right here. And then, I mean, this is just crazy stuff. And so that's some big information that we didn't know about. Also, we found out that there was a connection between Dr. Octavius and Justin Hammer, as basically Justin Hammer sent Dr. Octavius to Norman Osborn Industries as basically a spy. And now Dr. Octavius, that's the reason why Dr. Octavius is after Justin Hammer. And so we see that Justin Hammer is then going to make a scene here where he's going to be acting like he's all Mr. Nice Guy, has this big plan to help out New York City. So there's this whole nother side of Justin Hammer that people in the media just eats up. We see that the mayor introduces Justin Hammer, and Justin Hammer begins to speak in front of the people, basically telling them that he has this big construction basically experiment here, or not really experiment, but is basically going to help out with the construction process in New York City. It's called the Dome Project. And while Justin Hammer is speaking, we see that an Eddie Brock from the Daily Globe is going to ask a question to Justin Hammer about what CNN reported, which is basically that he has been funding the development and training of superpowered. We see Justin Hammer then is going to cut off Eddie Brock right here by saying, I'm surprised to find the Globe even here today. I thought you might have your hands full with things like Reed Richards sleeping with Madonna. And as Justin Hammer is continuing to speak here, on the screen we see Dr. Octavius as Dr. Octopus is killing people left and right on the screen. And we see Ben Urich from the Daily Bugle speaks up, and we see that he points to the screen saying that, hey, Dr. Octavius knows who you are, and Dr. Octavius is definitely after Justin Hammer. So back at school, we see the principal is basically telling everybody that Kraven the Hunter is coming to New York City, and that the entire school will be able to basically be a part of the TV show. They have to send a release form, get it signed by their parents. All of a sudden, a teacher comes to the principal and tells the principal that there's been an attack in the city, and everybody needs to remain calm here. Basically, everybody is being alerted here that Dr. Octavius has been found, and he is causing a lot of havoc here at this dome project. See, the news people are coming to the scene, and we see that Mary Jane tells Peter Parker to go as Spider-Man, leave the school, and handle this situation with Dr. Octopus. So we see that Spider-Man is seen on the scene here. We see that he's being shot at. Spider-Man then crashes into the Dome Project, and this is where he's going to come across Dr. Octopus for the first time, and that's how we end this issue. So Spider-Man has a lot of big trouble on his hand as he's going to tackle Dr. Octopus next issue for the first time. We also have to worry about Kraven the Hunter as well. So we have a lot going on. I hope to see you next issue as we look at issue number 18. And until next time, keep reading comics.